Hello again, it's Tubal Cain. Going to give you another lesson here in old technology, namely pipe threads, which are still commonly used even though we've switched pretty much to plastic and copper and other types of pipe. But the threaded pipe is still used in repair jobs, and certainly is used for natural gas in homes, and it's required by most codes. But the interesting thing about pipe threads is that they are tapered, and as both internally and externally, and as you tighten them along with your joint compound, this is what gives you a good seal. But yes, Virginia, there are straight pipe threads also, but I won't be talking about those right now. The most common sizes are 1/8 inch pipe, 1/4 inch, 3/8, half, 3/4, 1 inch, and then it still goes way up 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 2, and so on up to about 4 inch. Now in the smaller sizes, and by the way, I have a tap laying here for the appropriate size too. There's an 1/8 inch tap, and a tap for each size here, but I couldn't find the 1 inch, but there's a 2 inch tap. That's kind of an expensive tap if a fellow was forced to buy one. In the smaller sizes, you can buy pipe dies in these little round dies. So that's a 1/8 inch pipe die, and that's a 3/8, or a 1/4 rather, and a 3/8, and then a 1/2 inch die right here. But you probably would want to use the rigid die rather than that type, but those are available, and they would be cheaper than buying the great big dies. When I worked at a hardware store back in the early 60s as a teenager, spent pretty much the entire morning every Saturday threading pipe. People would come in with armloads of it, or they would buy pipe and they wanted to cut the length and then thread it, because they couldn't do this at home simply because they didn't have the dies. And you can still get this pipe cut at any home center or a hardware store, or certainly at plumbing supply, but you're going to pay an arm and a leg. I don't know what they charge you for a thread now. It used to be 25 cents when I was a kid to put a thread on, no matter what the size was. But in just a minute here, I'll be out in the garage, and I'm going to show you how to put cut pipe, ream it, and put a thread on. One thing old Tubal Cain forgot to mention here is that on any given size of pipe, for instance this is a 3/4 pipe, that 3/4 inch is a nominal size. That is to say, it isn't truly 3/4 on the inside, or the outside for that matter, but it's close to that, and we just call that a nominal size. And it's confusing if somebody tries to measure this and determine what the size is if they have no experience with pipe. Same thing with the 1 inch. It's fairly close to 1 inch, but it isn't really 1 inch. Most decimal equivalent charts have a small section on them regarding pipe threads. And some of the other sizes, it just makes no sense at all. On this video. For instance, in this 1/8 inch pipe, I'm going to put here's an 1/8 inch drill bit, and you can see that it's, has no correspondence at all to a true 1/8 inch. So that's what we call nominal. Alright, so let's thread some pipe. I've got a piece of 3/4 inch galvanized in my nice Wilton vise, and it has a set of pipe jaws. A pipe vise is even better, but this is a quality vise, not made in China. If you got a Chinese one, get rid of it. Use it for a boat anchor, and buy yourself a decent one to use. Okay, this is a pipe cutter, and it's just like a tubing cutter. We'll open it up a little bit, get it on there, get it started, and we turn it one turn, and then we screw in the cutter a little bit, and do that until you cut the end off. That'll give you a nice square end. Now, when you do that, you always end up with a burr on the inside as it rather compresses the pipe. That'll restrict flow of water, gas, whatever you're got going through the pipe. So use this big pipe reamer. I call it a hemorrhoid remover. It's a wicked looking thing. It's got a bit of a helix on it that tends to pull it in. So put that into the pipe and push on it. And do that until, see the shavings coming off? Until it takes the burr off. It'll take a little bit more than that, but that smoothed it up nicely. Now it's ready to thread. Be sure and use plenty of this sulfurized cutting oil. It's great for threads. Here's my 3/4 inch pipe thread made by Ridgid. Other makes are good too. I think Ridgid as the premier brand. Now I'm pushing this in as I turn it until it engages. Then you can feel it cut. I like to keep a wastebasket or newspaper or something under there to catch the chips because they're oily. You don't really need to back this off every time, but I like to from time to time. And also give you a chance to put just a little more oil on it. Now you're going to continue in this manner until you thread it. Remember, these are tapered threads, until you have about 2 threads sticking out the end of the die. And then you know you have about the standard length of thread that you need. The farther you go in, the harder it gets. You might hear this old man panting. I'll break the thread off. I'm reversing the ratchet. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this type of thread cutter. Got about 2 more revolutions to go. Back off the chips one more time. I used to do a lot of this at the hardware store when I was a teenager, before plastic pipe. Alright, we got 2 threads sticking out. Let's take it off. And you can spin that thing. And there we've got it. A nice tapered thread. Wipe it off, get it clean, ready to use.